So, welcome to the Golden Age podcast. We firmly believe that in spite of all the chaos and confusion in this world, there's actually a very bright future ahead of us, and that in our hearts we're all dreaming the same dream, the same real dream, of how this world is going to blossom once the heart of humanity awakens, and we remember who we truly are. And the purpose of this podcast is to have inspiring conversations with people like you today, Albert, who are doing inspiring work that is contributing to the co-creation of this beautiful new world in very unique ways. And Albert is working in the field of sacred sexuality, and he's also a facilitator of transformational events that help people to go into their body and to be more in contact with their feelings, to learn about themselves and to learn more about how to relate to others. So welcome, Albert. I'm really happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm curious to start with, what does it mean to go more into our body? Am I not in my body all the time?
Yes, physically you are in the body, but I think the best example is to bring into the as a baseline, like how many times you had an experience that you just felt something is off, like your body was like, you were shaking without a reason, or you are happy without reason, like you are sad, and you're like, oh, I feel so sad. Why am I sad? All sorts of those experiences that are more related to the body, but you did not have any explanation of why they are happening. So bringing people into their body is like to really connect into the body wisdom. There is lots of body wisdom that we somehow through time we forgot to use, or we numbed ourselves from feelings.
Yes.
Some people you hug and you feel this, I will melt into this hug. And some people you hug and you said, that doesn't feel right, and you want to disconnect quickly. So this is when the body is giving us signs, and this is what I immerse myself learning and find big passion teaching.
Yes. And you work a lot through sacred and conscious sexuality. What does that actually mean?
I mean, there is, when you say sacred or conscious, there is millions of explanations. What's sacred? I had conversation about, sacred it's religious. No, it's not. Sacred what my purpose and my passion is about is to bring awareness. For me, having sex or having sacred sex is the difference between running in the field, knowing I'm running to the other side of the field. That's mean I have a goal. I'm going from point A to point B, and it doesn't matter what will be on the path. I will miss all the nice flowers, the bugs, the birds, the sounds of the field. And the sacred part is to be more aware, to slow down, to still maybe go from point A forward, but without a fully defined point B, general direction. And when you do it with awareness and you're paying attention, you're slowing down, you're expanding much wider the spectrum of your experience. You all of a sudden hear more sounds, you feel the wind stroking you, or if there is some water drops from rain or whatever, there is much more sensation to experience. So imagine these two difference and bring them up to when you relate to another person. It's basically, this one is fast. I would say, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, or sir. And this one is much slower. There is more sensation. There is more time. There is more space for these two people to connect and really find what is the right touch and what is the right moment to touch, and, really paying attention. I love it in Hebrew when you say pay attention. It's sim lev, and the literal translation is put your heart. So this is something that my friend and colleague Ananda is brought into my life, and I'm using it as everywhere I can, because it's literally put your heart. And sacredness is just to bring uh, space, focus, awareness, and presence. Sorry.
So basically, awareness is also what combines all of these topics to each other, no? The sacred sexuality, coming into our body, connecting with ourselves, relating to others. Awareness
Yeah,
is really the key.
of course. Yeah, like being aware and being and trusting also. Trusting this. We are in a society right now that a lot in the head. We are using, I call it, compassionless communication mostly. I mean, we are barely talking with voice these days. It's all about WhatsApp, Messenger, whatever, all this IMs and DMs, and there is no value. There is no emotional value to the words. You can read them, but you know, it's not coming with the tone and the color of what you want to say. And I feel we are a little bit numbing this experience, or we are allowing our own personal story to create a sensation from a message. For like, for example, if someone writes you, "Are you stupid?" Or it can be like a question, or it can be um, like a wonder of like what's going on, or it's like
Yes.
you can take it like it. You can take it in humor, or you can take it in anger. You can take it in hurt. You can take it, however, because it's just three words that is appeared on the screen, and this is how we lose the connection between us.
So awareness, a deeper level of feeling and presence is basically the ingredient to really understand each other more, to feel each other, and to really be with each other, right?
I mean, what I'm saying, I think it's not about that. Like awareness is, I'm trying to find the right words that will. It can be like a really really long sentence, but to make it shorter, to bring the essence, is like awareness is to do things or to communicate or everything. You can cut vegetables with awareness, and then you are aware that you're not going to cut your finger.
Yes.
No, awareness is when you are fully in the experience. You are there. You are not allowing yourself to be distracted by something else. You are not allowing yourself to do more than one thing or two things at once. You are fully immersed in the experience of the moment. You are here and now with like I said, with your heart. You're paying attention. This is for me what awareness is all about.
And I know a main tool that you use in your work is the facilitation of events called Temple Nights, right?
Yes.
And can you explain to us a little bit on the practical level what's happening in a temple night, but also how do you hold space for the transformational experiences that are happening in these very profound events?
Well, that's another question that there is about 1,000 answers to.
Yes.
And I'm giving my personal view on it. Temple is as everything or everywhere in the world, temple was a place of prayer. And prayer can be in many, many forms. I don't want to say I'm not fully a fan of this statement holding space, because holding space means that I need to be responsible on everything that happens in the space at all time, 100% of the time, and I don't think it's possible. Nobody can take full responsibility on a group of 25 people.
Yes.
What my goal of in temple is the co-creation of the space. That we are all, whoever is in the space is the space holder, is the space, not even the space holder. And for example, what we do in the temples, it's a space of exploration. So defining the topic of a temple, we, for example, created a temple of boundaries, like explore boundaries, and then we have some exploration experiences to see where we meet our boundaries. You know, if you come if you come to life, for example, um, with this idea that I will never do that, or I'm going to temple and I will never do that, whatever that means, or whatever that is. It's not a boundary; it's a barrier. It's potentially it's a thing that will block you from either having the best experience of your life potentially, or to have a trigger, which from it you will grow. You know, I was in my other path of shamanism, I was in the jungle for quite a long time, and when I was in a trigger, I will go to my maestro there, and she will say, and I say, I'm trigger now, and I'm brr, and she said, good, go now, go work, go deal with your shit and grow. And yeah, it is that.
And please also give us another very basic introduction of what is a temple space for someone who has never experienced it before.
Mm. Thank you for asking that. That's actually a great question for me, because in the past 2.5 years, when I'm hosting temples, I hosted temples and created events that with people with knowledge. And being in temple, it's basically a space of exploration. People come having explorations, like I guide several practices or exercises to connect and find someone to connect with. And at the end, it's an open space to whatever wants to happen. So there were temples that ended up with a nice, mellow puddle, sensual. And there were temples that were more wild and more, how would I say it, wilder and more sexual in nature. So, yeah, so temple is a place that people come, meet, and with the guidance of the exercises, they connect and they do whatever feels right to do.
So it's a place to explore connection, communication that can but doesn't have to also include sexuality. Is that correct?
Of course, there is no have to at all in temples. There is no have to. The only have to that there is to honor yourself. You know, and the tools that I personally love to give in this temple is to really how to connect to yourself and how to feel, okay, this is a no, I don't want to do that, or this is a yes, I want to dive deep into that. And from there, that when there is a readiness of, okay, there is the machine of the bodies, the choices, that how to make the choices is primed, it's allowing them to, okay, go explore and see what's going on.
And would you say it's correct that the purpose of a temple is actually not to have pleasurable experiences? Of course, this can be there, but the purpose is more to learn about ourselves.
No. My teacher, my main teacher, my mentor, Laurie Handlers, her, she had 3 sentences I can give you from her. One, she's saying, pleasure is your birthright. Everything is about pleasure. You deserve to, we are sexual beings, and we deserve to live in pleasure. Pleasure does not mean only sexual pleasure. Pleasure means everything. That we live good, we live happy, we live in joy. And and this is like the thing. Pleasure doesn't have to be fucking. Pleasure doesn't have to be a certain thing. Pleasure is the sensation that you are very happy with what's happening to your body or to your in your environment. So I would say temperance is all about knowing what is a great pleasure for yourself,
I
but
like it.
not necessarily sexual.
I
You know?
like the pleasure is your birthright.
Yes, this is one of my, it's like me arriving to this field is through another sentence from Laurie that is basically one of the first sentences in her book. It says, "We teach what we need to learn most." That this is like we practice what we are.
Yes.
And so we are all on a journey to find more pleasure. You can always turn good to great.
So pleasure is your birthright. We teach what we need to learn the most. And what's the third one?
Someone is not related. I was thinking about it later. It's like, yeah, maybe it's not. It's not for now.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
And you spoke also about feeling, that the temple experience helps us to understand and feel more our feelings. Did I understand that correct?
Yes, but this is not the feeling of like sadness, love, and it's also not the feeling of pleasant or unpleasant. If I touch someone, so there is the first contact, like how my skin meet their skin, and this is one sense of feeling. And then there is the secondary feeling. It's like, how do I feel about the fact that this person is touching me? And in this area, we have so many stories. It's not that I'm ashamed to admit or something, but in the beginning of my path, like I'm talking about 8 years ago, when I just introduced for the first time into the conscious sacred sexuality, conscious world, I learned several things like will of consent and also that it's like, coming from a completely different environment or completely different culture, programming, learning, oh my God, okay, I've done some mistakes. And I imagine that I've done a lot of mistakes in this path. But my personal thing is that when I learned that I made mistakes, I put myself in the path that's like, okay, I will never make this mistake again. I will do my best to not repeat anything. It's more for me than for others, it's growth. Like I don't want to be on I didn't want to be, or I don't want to be on the end of, no matter what the interaction is, that someone is hurt.
Yes.
So as I went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into that, I understood how important and how needed this work is especially in the sex positive communities. Like I know a lot of people in the sex positive work that still don't have fully understanding of consent or following completely this modalities of consent that are will of consent. For example, will of consent is an amazing tool to create agreements and to move within interactions, to move in interactions in a safe place between 2, 3, or 5 people, no matter what. But another level, another layer deeper is, how do we feel? How many times people do things with the sentence, oh, I'm already here, I might as well. Or how many times we create an agreement between, let's say, me and my partner, we're creating an agreement. Okay, we are going to do this and this and this. You are going to do this to me. I'm going to do this to you. And as we start, it doesn't feel that is the right thing, or there is not enough sensitivity to see that what is happening is not accurate, And in my workshop, I try. It's hard, but I'm doing my best to show that you can, just by slowing down and observation, prevent yourself from going into these technicalities of, I'm calling them falling outside the will of consent.
Mm-hmm.
Like the classic example that every workshop is using is, if someone wants to interact with someone, and let's say for this thing, it's a man wants to interact with a woman, and it's like, oh, would you like a shoulder massage? And it's like, oh, sure, I would love shoulder massage. And then starting the shoulder and slowly kind of like grabbing the boobs. And in this is not non-consensual, even though there was no said. But in the sense of, you also did not ask if you can touch boobs. And also within that, there is this yes and enthusiastic yes. The trust. For me personally, I'm not a fan of enthusiastic yes, because it's interpretation. What is enthusiastic?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was very enthusiastic when you said yes, and it's everything that you leave into interpretation. The potential to find resolution is smaller, because most people want to stick. Nobody likes to be called a perpetrator, and people, unfortunately, they find themselves stuck in a victim mode.
Mm-hmm.
And then you create, instead of creating a listening experience, you create a victim and a perpetrator, when the perpetrator doesn't even understand what he did wrong. He asks a question, and the answer to the question is yes, and he follows through, but the yes was not an enthusiastic yes, even though he perceived it as an enthusiastic yes. So there is a lot of mindfuck here. So my work is basically, first of all, to empower the yes to be yes, to really to come from there is one of the experiences that I guide is that I put two people to stand in front of each other, and one of them is the receiver, one of them is the requester, and and they are standing in a very in a very accurate way, guided. They are going to stand away in arm length from each other. There will be no touch between them. There will be only questions, and it's not going to escalate into, in no point, to a physical thing. And one person will ask question: can I do this to you? Can I bring this to you? Can I take you there? And the other person will have to say yes to everything. And then I guide, look, ask for things that you imagine that the other person will be a yes to, and also ask for things that you imagine that the person will be absolutely no to, but they have to say yes. And of course, I guide them to take care of themselves and to be true to themselves. And if they don't feel like saying yes, even though it's an exercise, they should not say yes. But most of the time, what happens is, when we do the harvesting, when I ask people, how is it to say yes to something that you really don't want, like when I do it, this is the thing, that there is always one person. Most of the time I experienced this was men that saying that it's not valid because it's a game.
Mm-hmm.
So I take him and say, okay, let me and you let's think. And I go and I say, oh, I would like to take you to a restaurant, the best restaurant in town, the food that you love the most. He goes, yeah. And I was like, oh, I would love to take you to the spa and all on me, massages, everything fully pampered. He goes, yeah, cool, It's like, oh, I would like to take you to a BDSM studio and have someone beat the crap out of you. And there is this, yeah. you know, and you could see how the body close when you show this to people, when people talk about it, other people in the group starting to listen more. When you say yes to something, it's a no. There is immediate reaction that is not pleasant. Some people saying there is a dryness in the throat, the mouth, the lips get dry. There is a closeness that they lean back or they feel the stomach cramping. So there is a lot of signs that this is the body wisdom we spoke about before.
And the purpose of such an exercise is to learn more about ourselves and what we truly want, right? And how we
It's
experience it.
it's not to learn. It's to learn about how our body respond when we say something that is actually against what the body wants or need in the moment. You know, and if nobody said there is we even nobody said that we need to instant message or instant reply everything, and we don't take the time. We are like we are in super. We are interacting in hyper speed sometimes. So another thing is like to take your time. I ask you for something. Let's breathe before. Allow the body to take this question and feel. If it felt like the contraction I had when I said yes and it was a no, then it's a no. And then I have the opposite, you know, it's leaning forward. If you're being asked something and the body really wants it, you're naturally going to lean a bit forward into it. You're going to have an enthusiastic. This is the enthusiastic yes that it's filling the gap. You know, if two people standing in front of each other and one says, "Can I kiss you?" and the other person will say yes. If this person will go forward and this person will not come forward, this is not a yes.
Yes.
You know, like if they're boom, they will meet somewhere in the middle. This is a yes, and this is what I'm trying to bring people to pay attention to, how their body moves, and not to be in the mind. It's like, okay, I said yes, so I have to do it, or there is a point of no return. Like if I said yes, I can't change my mind.
And now, if we fast forward
Yeah.
into the future where humanity already went through countless processes, and when there's much deeper understanding of ourselves, our feelings, our sexuality, our embodiment, what is different in our experience of ourselves than it is right now for the majority of people on this planet?
I think that this is a good question, and it's very open also. But I think sexuality, like when we relate in regarding to our body, we sometimes crossing our own boundaries, you know, and we outside when we are not related into sexuality, it's a constant battle of boundaries. Like, you know, how much would you pay for stuff? Where do you want to go? What, you know, it's always tuning in. And imagine that there is a society that will be fully authentic and follow what is right. You want to go to the pool? No, I don't feel like going to the pool. I don't feel like really trusting the body. And on the other hand, the people that receive this, I don't feel like, will understand that it's not rejection and it's not something that is related to them. This person just doesn't want to go to the pool right now.
Do you also think that through embodying ourselves more and being in touch with our feelings, and also through that each other's feelings, that we will automatically embody a divine intelligence where we directly remember that we are not separate from each other?
This is a very deep philosophic question about this topic. It's really I don't have like I'm not there to give you an answer to this depth. Yes, I believe that we are all connected. I believe that there is a what you call divine. It's I heard so many definitions, in this past 8 years. I hear divine in so many aspects and so many
Yes.
things. And I think that we are the divine. When we are fully embodied and authentic, and we are true to ourselves, and we are allowing, in the shamanic path, there is a one of definition of our existence is that we are made from four bodies. We have the physical bodies, the vessels, the muscles, and the mind, the muscles and the bones and the organs that carry us and keep us alive in the physical realm. And then we have the emotional body, which the signification of the heart. How do we feel emotion and how do we process emotion? And then when we have the mind, which is the thoughtful body, like how do we process and create? And then do we have the energetic body, which is our aura, our whatever is starting from the skin to the size of it. And one of my experiences of divinity or divine is that there is a full harmony between all the four. And you can live in the world and you can experience sadness or happiness without creating a story. You just understand that this is what needs to happen right now, and you allow it to happen and move forward. And when you're in, for example, this is a more shamanic approach to that. Divinity is a form of being in service, and allowing yourself to completely let go of everything, that's who you are and what you are, and allow the information pass through you from the divine. This is another aspect of it. The last two that I shared, this is the things that resonate with me the most.
Yes. I also experience it in a similar way. When I'm connected with like my divine essence, it's like there's a natural flow of energy, of inspiration, like through me that naturally I want to be in service to. While when I'm not connected with that, I'm much more in my own inner. I think I'm myself trying to survive in this world. But when I'm connected, I'm naturally just in service.
Yeah. Something is very interesting. I found I heard it very recently in a retreat that I was, is about the difference between the mind and the body, and why we are all, we're, in a sense, suffering. If we have a lot of, like, we have infinite amount of energy, ability to produce in the mind. The imagination is limitless. You can do whatever you want with the imagination. You can tell yourself a story, and if you tell it enough time, you will believe it, and then it's going to project into your body. So if you can create, if you create so much, which means if your mind is so much triggered and activated, and there is a lot of thoughts running, you are tiring your body, and you are suppressing your body, and you are not allowing your body to be in the experience. Our body is not like our mind. Our body has a limited capacity to hold this energy before we are losing, going into anxiety or going into some sort of a unpleasant or pleasant experience, depends what's going on in the head. Now, this is the difference between being in fantasy and presence,
Yes.
creating pleasure through fantasy or through experience. This is a
Huge difference.
yes, a very big difference.
Also, I'm quite impressed by the work that you're doing and how much you dedicate yourself to it, because I see it has such amazing potential of like healing, understanding, learning, awakening bliss, also like understanding more about how to relate. And at the same time, there's so many challenges when you apply that, right? Especially when you work with groups.
Of
and
course.
and I'm curious, how do you experience that, and how do you deal with the challenges that come up?
That's something that is really actual. This is really current in the world right now. There is a lot of fire in the sacred sexuality field. A lot of people want to. There is a. I do believe that what's happening, it needs to happen, but not in the way that it's happening. I do believe that teachers that forgot the way and abusing power and taking advantage of vulnerability in people should be dealt with. I don't believe in exclusion. I don't believe in okay, we need to think. I do believe in education and pointing out the shadows or pointing out the blind spot. And but in a sense, there is the talk about the talk about personal responsibility, and everybody, not everybody, I'll take it back. Most of the people that's speaking about personal responsibility is about this is the nature of your experience. Like if you had a bad experience, it's because you made the decisions that led you to have this experience. And in my view, personal responsibility is also, it's not just it's not the choices that you make in order to protect yourself. It's very important that it's about the choices that we make, that we are in bliss and pleasure, My responsibility is to protect myself, of course, and also my responsibility is that I will have the best experience I can have. And not a lot of talking about this thing. And then there is a gap in the communication, which is a bit problematic right now. When I don't even know how to approach this. It's very complicated and very delicate topic, and it's very my personal approach to that is to educate myself, because most of the times that there is an issue, it's related to trauma, and my promise to myself first, is to not be in the situation that's, if someone comes to my temples or to my workshops and they leave with bitterness, it's like it doesn't matter if there is 50 people that are doing great and one that is doing bad, doesn't worth it to me. And I'm doing my best, I'm not saying that I'm bulletproof, and I'm not saying that I'm not making mistakes. And the temple culture, the sacred sexuality culture, is becoming so wide, and it's almost reaching mainstream. So more people with more, I will say, unresolved issues are arriving, and you have more opportunities to make mistakes.
And it's good to differentiate also between like what is just a trigger that comes up for someone that's fully their own responsibility, or where is a trigger that has been caused by something that was not going so well, if I put it in very simple terms.
If you're going there, it's like you can't, because you don't really know. I know a lot of people that thought that are completely without trauma found deep trauma.
Yes.
I don't trauma. I'm fully aware. I'm fully that, and then something happened. They kind of like disappeared into this defense mechanism that is around the trauma. And
I don't think there's anybody without trauma.
some people believe that they don't have trauma, and it's okay. The thing is that, and this is the most important thing, is I believe for what I learned from one of my teachers. Everybody will make mistakes, especially when you're making temples and you're posting them. Okay, this group or this group and this group, and you invite people that you don't know into the temple, and mistakes can happen. When there is a mistake, there is also an opportunity to bring amazing healing and empowerment to the person that got hurt, or to stand behind. It was your responsibility, your choice. You wanted it, or you wanted to be here, and you signed this disclaimer, blah blah blah, and pushing the people worse into the defense and worse into the trauma. And this is why I started, like I said to you before. A lot of my colleagues and peers, they are creating spaces. They say, "Oh, I feel to create temples for more advanced people, for more," and fine, people moving forward, but who they are taking with? Like taking the people who knows to the next level, and then there is nothing. So my work right now is to create what I call stairways to temple. Is to create a series of workshops to really allow people to understand better what does it mean temple, and to understand themselves better, and to be more empowered and confident coming into the space, and follow their true desires and their authentic wishes in the moment.
Also, can you please explain, like, again, for someone who has no idea about this topic, a little bit more about the relation between trauma and sexuality?
Oh.
I know we can talk forever about it.
There is a lot of trauma is one of the definition of trauma that I like is that came from Gabor Mate, that I kind of like follow, and I did some of his trainings. The trauma is an experience that didn't receive full emotional expression.
Yes.
That's one. There is a lot more and a lot more deeper, of course, but this is something that we can. I think sexuality is a field. Sexuality in general, it's a place when we are most vulnerable, and trauma sometimes happens, or I don't know. I'm not like, I don't want to say something about trauma that I'm not fully educated about. I'm in the process. I feel that I'm aware about trauma, and I'm very informed, and I know how to support people in trauma response, but I'm not feeling like the authority to say the relationship between, because it's so wide and it doesn't have one thing.
It's so profound. I understand.
It's not about even profoundness. It's just there is so much, and we are learning.
Complex.
It's very complex. There is so much about trauma, and even I can tell you about personal myself. When I opened the first door of trauma in my being, I thought, okay, that's one. And then there's another one when you process one. And then when you finish processing this one, and you're going deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's kind of like an endless maze of experiences that some of them through plant medicine, I experienced amazing, tremendous amount of healing just by understanding that, I just didn't have the ability to process it at the time. Things that happened when I was a child, things that happened. And another thing that is happening in trauma is that when you are in the trauma, you are responding to the past events. You're not current. You're not here. And now, so it's really, I'm like, as much as I would love to speak about trauma, I don't feel that I'm there yet to bring some solid sentence about sexual trauma and trauma, or sexuality and trauma related this way. It's so wide, it's so big,
Would you agree with the following, that most of our trauma is stored in our body in some way that we are not aware of? And because sexuality also works through the body, it can actually help to bring like impulses to these different layers of feelings that are stored in our body, which when it's done well, it can help to heal them. But if it's done not so well, it just activates it without being guided into healing. Would you agree with that?
Yes, actually, yes, and this is in my experience quite accurate. But every time that we are in the trauma or triggering it, what happens after the trigger is what's important.
Yes.
You know? And there isn't a lot of people in the field, or another sentence, that a lot of people in the field are now pausing to educate themselves about trauma, including myself. I've seen and experienced things that taught me that I must learn if I want to continue and I want to offer high quality of service. I must educate myself about trauma. I must. It's not something that, oh, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't,
Yes.
And I've done in the last 2 years since COVID started. I'm digging mainly because I understand how trauma affects my life, but also how can I be to support people around me or in the spaces that I facilitate to have a better experience, or even sometimes release of the trauma.
Also, because the way you work, you don't learn something and then you pass it on with your mind, but it's like you learn it with your whole being and then you pass it on through presence and embodiment while using different tools, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you read a book and then you.
Yeah. It's definitely not reading. It's definitely not only really reading a book, but it's also increasing sensitivity. It's like learning and to observe and to really learning a lot about. It's like having a map, that a child drew to a very professional, fully detailed map of
Yes.
how to relate. And the more you learn, the more things you learn to pay attention to put your heart into. And the deeper you go into this learning, you recognize them in the field. Uh, I notice, in my workshop, I notice now I give an exercise and I observe everybody. I am putting everybody in my eyesight, and I want to see how their body moves. I want to see if there is, like, recognizing freeze, recognizing body language that is not fitting the moment or the spirit of the moment. And yeah, with experiences and learning and educating, and go deeper and deeper into your own story, and going deeper into understanding the stories and understanding what is the best way to deal with people, or what is the best way to support people with trauma. The better you, the more knowledge you accumulate, the better you are in handling and supporting.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say are the fruits of this work for someone who's really going into the work with temple spaces or sacred sexuality, conscious sexuality, embodiment? How does it really affect one's experience of life if it's done well?
It's basically, first of all, the first thing that you learn is you learn to set healthy boundaries. And boundaries is the filter that you create to not allow toxic experiences to come into your space. So this is by itself a massive advancement to people when they understand, oh wow, I can say no to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I taught a workshop about boundaries in Poland, And the feedback I received was so surprising to me and crazy, like that there is lack of knowledge. The people don't know that they are allowed to speak up. They don't know that they are allowed to change their mind. They don't know that they can just say, okay, bye, and leave. But there's this, I'm here, so I might as well. I'm here, so I already said yes, but it's not really, it's okay. It's not the best, but it's okay. I'm like, no, fuck that shit. I'm here to have the best time of my life. And if it's not the best time of my life, how do I make it the best time of my life? And if I can't make it the best time of my life, I'm going. You know, that's the whole, everything in one sentence.
I like it. And if someone is inspired to find out more about your work, how can they find you?
I have two partners that we do once a year an event. It's called Power of Eros. Currently we are not sure about next year. We did it 2 years and we are kind of like in a pause. But poweroferos.com, you can find all three of us. We all offer work. You can find me, Albert Beaton, on Facebook. I'll send you later. You can put it as a and Instagram also. I think I'm starting slowly to use it. And my email. I can.
Perfect. We'll add it as well. And you're based in Berlin, right? Germany.
I moved out of Berlin. I'm actually I live in Oranienburg now, which is about an hour north. I moved into I have my own temple.
Good decision. Right.
I have a big space in Oranienburg, 5 minutes from the forest, 5 minutes from a lake, walking. And I really needed to disconnect from the city because it's just become too much for me.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Well, thank you very much, Albert. I really enjoyed the inspiration and connecting with you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.